Imagine waking up one day and realizing you don't recognize the face in the mirror. You struggle to remember your own children's names. At first, it's just the little things. Forgetting where you put your keys or repeating a question you asked minutes ago. But then, it gets worse. You lose track of time, get lost in familiar places, and suddenly, even your most cherished memories start slipping away. Dementia isn't just forgetfulness. It's the slow, devastating breakdown of everything that makes you who you are. And while many believe this is simply an inevitable part of aging, new research uncovered something far more disturbing. Certain medications, ones millions of people take every single day, may be quietly accelerating this process. According to the World Health Organization, over 55 million people suffer from dementia worldwide, and this number is expected to triple to 139 million by 2050. But how bad is it in the US? Right now, more than 6.7 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's disease, the most common form of dementia. And that number is expected to double to nearly 13 million by 2050, according to the Alzheimer's Association. Here's where it gets even more shocking. A 2023 study in JAMA Neurology found that some common prescription drugs increase dementia risk by up to 79%. These aren't obscure experimental drugs. These are FDA-approved medications prescribed by doctors every day. This video counts down 12 medications that have been scientifically linked to dementia, ending with the one believed to have the biggest impact. Some of these are over-the-counter drugs you might take for allergies or heartburn. Others are prescription medications for anxiety, blood pressure, or depression. The higher we go on this list, the more alarming the findings become. If you or a loved one is taking any of these, you need to know the risks now, before it's too late. Are you ready? Number 12, antihistamines. Common medications in this category include diphenhydramine, Benadryl, Unisom sleep gels, chlorpheniramine, chlortrimeton, hydroxyzine, Vistaril Atarax, promethazine, Phenergan, and cyproheptadine, Periactin. You probably recognize these allergy and sleep medications, but what if that little pink pill was silently shrinking your brain? First-generation antihistamines like diphenhydramine block acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter that plays a critical role in memory and learning. Without it, brain cells shrink and eventually die. A 2015 study in JAMA Internal Medicine found that people who took these antihistamines for 3 years or more had a 54% higher risk of developing dementia. Even short-term use can cause brain fog, difficulty concentrating, and confusion. The risk is even greater for seniors. As we age, our natural acetylcholine levels decline. Taking a medication that further suppresses this neurotransmitter dramatically accelerates cognitive decline. The longer you take it, the worse the damage. Number 11, benzodiazepines. Common medications in this category include diazepam, Valium, lorazepam, Ativan, alprazolam, Xanax, clonazepam, Klonopin, and temazepam, Restoril. Millions rely on benzodiazepines or benzos for anxiety, panic attacks, and insomnia. But what if these pills were slowly erasing your ability to think clearly? A 2022 study in the BMJ found that people over 65 who took benzodiazepines for just 3 months had a 32% higher risk of cognitive decline. Another study in the American Journal of Geriatric Psychiatry found that long-term users had an 80% higher risk of developing Alzheimer's disease compared to non-users. Benzos work by slowing brain activity, making them effective for anxiety. But over time, they also shrink neurons and weaken memory formation. If you've ever taken one and felt mentally sluggish the next day, that's your brain struggling to function under its effects. These drugs also increase the risk of falls and confusion, both of which are major concerns for seniors. Unfortunately, many seniors are prescribed benzodiazepines without being warned about the long-term consequences. Number 10, proton pump inhibitors. Common medications in this category include omeprazole, Prilosec, esomeprazole, Nexium, pantoprazole, Protonix, lansoprazole, Prevacid, and rabeprazole, Acifex. If you take medication for acid reflux, you're not alone. More than 15 million Americans take proton pump inhibitors, PPIs, daily, but only few realize these drugs could be damaging their brains. A 2021 study found that older adults who used PPIs for more than 4.5 years had a 44% increased risk of dementia.
Why? These medications reduce stomach acid, which interferes with the absorption of vitamin B12, a nutrient essential for brain function.
Low B12 levels are directly linked to cognitive decline and neurological damage. PPIs also disrupt gut bacteria, which scientists now believe plays a key role in brain health. Chronic use can lead to inflammation, which has been identified as a major driver of Alzheimer's disease. Many people take PPIs for years, never realizing they were originally intended for short-term use. Number 9. Antipsychotics. Common medications in this category include risperidone, Risperdal, olanzapine, Zyprexa, quetiapine, Seroquel, haloperidol, Haldol, and clozapine, Clozaril. These drugs were originally developed to treat schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, but today they're widely prescribed for anxiety, depression, and even sleep issues, and their effect on the brain is profound.
A 2023 review in The Lancet Psychiatry confirmed that prolonged use of antipsychotics leads to brain volume reduction, especially in areas responsible for memory and decision-making.
These drugs block dopamine, a neurotransmitter that helps your brain form new connections and process information. Without enough dopamine, neurons struggle to communicate, leading to a gradual shutdown of cognitive functions. Some doctors now warn that prescribing these drugs to sedate elderly patients, a common practice in nursing homes, may be accelerating their decline rather than helping them. Number 8. Statins. Common medications in this category include atorvastatin, Lipitor, simvastatin, Zocor, rosuvastatin, Crestor, pravastatin, Pravachol, and lovastatin, Mevacor. Statins are praised for their ability to lower cholesterol, but could they also be lowering your brain's ability to function? A 2020 study found that older adults on high-dose statins had a 58% higher likelihood of developing memory impairment. Why is that? Because statins reduce coenzyme Q10, a crucial molecule for brain cell energy production.
Without it, neurons struggle to survive, leading to memory loss, confusion, and difficulty concentrating, a phenomenon some doctors call statin brain.
Some researchers also believe that cholesterol itself is essential for brain health. Neurons need cholesterol to maintain their structure and function. Lowering it too much may actually disrupt cognitive processes. Number 7. Antidepressants. Common medications in this category include paroxetine, Paxil, amitriptyline, Elavil, fluoxetine, Prozac, sertraline, Zoloft, and citalopram, Celexa. Antidepressants help millions of people, but could they also be contributing to cognitive decline? A 2019 study in neurology found that long-term use of SSRIs and tricyclic antidepressants was associated with a higher risk of dementia, particularly in patients over 65 years old. The reason? These drugs alter serotonin levels, which affect neurogenesis, the brain's ability to generate new cells. Over time, they may change the structure of the hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for memory.
Ironically, some doctors now believe long-term antidepressant use could actually increase the risk of cognitive decline, the very thing they're often prescribed to prevent.
Number 6. Beta blockers. Common medications in this category include metoprolol, Lopressor, propranolol, Inderol, atenolol, tenormin, bisoprolol, Zebita, and carvedilol, Coreg. For millions of people with high blood pressure, beta blockers are a daily necessity. These drugs slow the heart rate, reducing strain on the cardiovascular system. But what if they were also silently reducing blood flow to your brain? A 2022 study in the Journal of the American Heart Association found that long-term beta blocker use was associated with a 35% higher risk of dementia. The reason? These medications reduce cerebral blood flow, meaning the brain receives less oxygen and fewer nutrients over time.
This oxygen deprivation can lead to atrophy in critical brain regions, particularly the hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for memory formation.
Additionally, beta blockers interfere with norepinephrine, a neurotransmitter involved in alertness and focus. That's why many users report brain fog, memory lapses, and even depressive symptoms after prolonged use. While beta blockers can be life-saving for heart disease patients, the potential cognitive risks shouldn't be ignored. Number 5. Opioids. Common medications in this category include oxycodone, OxyContin, hydrocodone, Vicodin, morphine, MS-Contin, fentanyl, Duragesic, and codeine. Opioids are among the most powerful pain relievers, but they don't just dull physical pain. They suppress brain function as well, and over time that suppression could lead to irreversible cognitive decline. A 2023 study published in Neurology found that chronic opioid use was associated with a 40% faster rate of cognitive decline in older adults.
These drugs interfere with the brain's opioid receptors, which are not only responsible for pain relief, but also play a role in neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new connections.
One of the most alarming effects of long-term opioid use is white matter degradation. White matter is essential for communication between different regions of the brain. When it deteriorates, people experience slowed thinking, impaired decision-making, and severe memory issues. Given the ongoing opioid crisis, many doctors are now re-evaluating long-term prescriptions, especially for seniors, whose brains are more vulnerable to these effects. Number 4. Muscle relaxants. Common medications in this category include cyclobenzaprine, Flexeril, carisoprodol, Soma, methocarbamol, Robaxin, baclofen, Lioresal, and tizanidine, Zanaflex. Muscle relaxants are commonly prescribed for chronic back pain, spasms, and tension, but their impact on brain function is rarely discussed. These medications work by depressing the central nervous system, which can have serious consequences for cognition.
A 2020 study in the Journal of the American Geriatric Society found that older adults taking muscle relaxants regularly had a 36% higher risk of developing dementia.
The biggest concern: these drugs sedate the brain, slowing down cognitive processing and impairing memory formation. Long-term use has also been linked to delirium, confusion, and an increased risk of falls, especially in older adults. Since many seniors already experience natural declines in processing speed, adding a medication that further slows brain function can accelerate cognitive impairment. Dementia isn't just memory loss, it's a progressive, fatal disease that ultimately shuts down the body. A 2023 report from the National Institute on Aging found that 93% of people diagnosed with late-stage dementia die within 5 years, a mortality rate higher than many cancers. But how does cognitive decline actually lead to death?
In its early stages, dementia affects memory, thinking, and judgment, making everyday tasks difficult. But as the disease progresses, it disrupts vital functions controlled by the brain.
By the late stages, dementia completely shuts down the body's ability to move, swallow, and even breathe properly. At this stage, the brain has deteriorated so much that the person can no longer recognize loved ones, communicate, or control essential bodily functions. Once the brain can no longer sustain basic life functions, survival is no longer possible. 1. Loss of swallowing reflex. One of the most dangerous complications of dementia is dysphagia, or difficulty swallowing. Patients lose the ability to control their throat muscles, leading to food and liquids being inhaled into the lungs instead of going into the stomach. This often causes aspiration pneumonia, the leading cause of death in dementia patients. 2. Malnutrition and dehydration. As swallowing becomes difficult, patients often stop eating and drinking. Without enough nutrition, the body weakens, the immune system collapses, and organ failure sets in. Immobility and infections. In the later stages, dementia robs people of their ability to walk and even sit up. This immobility leads to bed sores, which can turn into severe infections like sepsis, a life-threatening condition that spreads bacteria through the bloodstream. 4. Brain failure. Dementia is essentially a brain failure. The brain controls breathing, heart rate, digestion, and immune function. As more brain cells die, these critical functions begin to shut down one by one. By the time dementia reaches its final stage, the body can no longer sustain itself.
Most patients die from these complications rather than dementia itself. Many families assume dementia is a long, slow mental decline, but the reality is that it's a whole-body failure that leads to death in multiple ways.
The medications in this video don't just affect memory, they accelerate this process, increasing the risk of early death. Some of the drugs on this list impact cognition in early stages, while others cause damage only after prolonged use. But the medications in our top 3 are particularly alarming because their cognitive effects have been observed even in short-term use. Number 3. Sleep medications. Common medications in this category include zolpidem, Ambien, esopicolone, Lunesta, temazepam, Restoril, Zaloplan, Sonata, and doxepin, Silanor. Millions of people take sleep aids, but only few realize the long-term consequences. Many popular sleep medications work by suppressing brain activity, which over time can cause significant cognitive decline.
A 2019 study in the British Medical Journal found that older adults who took sleep medications at least twice a week had a greater risk of developing dementia compared to those who didn't.
These drugs reduce slow-wave sleep, which is essential for memory consolidation and brain detoxification. Over time, sleep medications have been linked to slowed thinking, confusion, and increased brain atrophy. And because they alter brainwave patterns, the damage may continue even after stopping the medication. Number 2. Anticholinergics. Common medications in this category include oxybutynin, ditropan, scopolamine, tolterodine, Ditrol, benztropine, cogentin, and diphenhydramine, Benadryl. Anticholinergics are prescribed for everything from bladder control to Parkinson's disease, but they have a dark side. They directly block acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter essential for memory and learning. A 2018 study in the BMJ found that patients who took anticholinergic drugs for just 3 months had significantly higher rates of cognitive decline, and those on them for over a year had a 49% increased risk of dementia. Because acetylcholine is already in short supply in aging brains, blocking it further accelerates neuron loss.
Many experts now believe that long-term anticholinergic use may be one of the leading medication-related causes of dementia worldwide.
Number 1. Corticosteroids. Common medications in this category include prednisone, dexamethasone, hydrocortisone, methylprednisolone, and triamcinolone. Corticosteroids are powerful anti-inflammatory drugs, but they may come at a cost: long-term brain damage. These drugs mimic cortisol, the body's stress hormone, and while they can reduce inflammation, they also damage the hippocampus, the brain's memory center. A 2022 study in neurology found that people who took corticosteroids regularly had a 66% higher risk of cognitive impairment. Long-term use has been linked to brain shrinkage, confusion, and even steroid-induced dementia. Because these drugs affect both brain structure and function, their impact can be profound, even in people without pre-existing cognitive issues. The risks increase significantly with higher doses and prolonged use.
If you're currently taking any of these medications, don't panic, but don't ignore the risks either. Speak to your doctor about alternative treatments, especially if you've been on these drugs for years.
Many people can't simply stop taking these medications overnight, but there may be safer options, lower doses, or lifestyle changes that can help reduce reliance on them. If you want to protect your brain health, focus on reducing inflammation, maintaining healthy blood flow, and keeping your neurotransmitters strong. In many cases, simple dietary changes, exercise, or cognitive training help offset medication-related risks.
And there you have it. What are your thoughts? Next, dive into this video for more essential tips to transform your health and help you thrive. You're going to love it. Thanks for watching Healthy End, and we'll see you there.